Chris Mason, we're live. It's been a minute. How you
All
doing?
right, I'm doing good.
All right. We are back, people, with another Oklahoma recruiting pod. Obviously, the recruiting intel with Chris Griffin and Chris Mason, the man of the hour. Sooners 360 himself, Horns Down Podcast. Definitely like, subscribe, do all those different things with the channel. If you like the content and all the rest of that stuff, definitely let us hear some feedback. We love to hear that. And as always, you guys know liking the video does not take that long to do, and also leaving feedback and all the rest of that stuff. But tonight we got a quick show, a good show. We're going to be back every Monday, hopefully, with updates about recruiting, high school recruiting mostly, but we'll definitely talk about portal stuff, give our thoughts on a lot of things. Definitely got some news to get to as well. So maybe Chris Mason, we turn this into a recruiting show and just kind of, hitting a high point so as far as what's going on. But I guess right now, just jumping into it, Chris Mason. I know there's some. We want to talk about some portal additions. Go ahead.
Yeah, OU made a late portal edition that was first announced by the 247 guys over on the OU site. OU added Fred Hinton from Easton, Kentucky. He's 6'4", 315 pounds. He's got 2 years of eligibility, plus he has a redshirt year. He played in 23 games the last 2 seasons for Eastern Kentucky, and he made 6 starts. He played at IMG at a high school with Jaden Jackson and David Stone. I'm not sure that OU was ever going to add a starter level offensive lineman this late in the portal with the starters that they have on the roster and having already added a potential starter in Amarian Harris. But Chris, I think this is a good depth piece, and if you'd asked me if OU could make a late addition to any roster group in the portal, I probably would have chosen O-line. This puts OU at 14 to 15 offensive linemen for the spring who are true recruited scholarship players. So this gives you another interior guy. He can play right tackle. He can play either guard position. I don't know that he has any experience playing center, but this certainly gives you, to a certain degree, it's a depth piece. It gives you more competition on your second team offensive line, and maybe it's a little bit of insurance against Darius Afalava and Daniel Akinkimi. Maybe if they struggle in spring, you've got someone who's got some college experience, has played college football, has some upside, potentially as a sort of insurance piece behind them to push them as well. And Chris, if for some reason, OU has the younger guys who all have burned their red shirts, all are able to play in the two deep, and we have the starting group plays the majority of the time. You could redshirt him, and you've got 2 more years to play down the road. So I think that flexibility shouldn't be ignored. That if he doesn't play, well, you can redshirt him, and then if he's developing, then you have him for next year and the following year. That gives you a little depth. It doesn't hurt to kind of balance out the classes a little bit by having somebody who has that level of flexibility.
Where is your what's the sense? What's the feel that you get about this offensive line group going into the season?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty confident that if this group can stay on the field together, has a spring where they can get some cohesion and get some chemistry going, and the 6 primary guys that should make up the starting group, and you've got some flexibility there, I think, with Harris and Ozetta as well, and also with Foji. I like where OU is. I certainly prefer OU building an offensive line this way versus having added 4 or 5 starter pieces from the portal.
Yeah.
I think, this is a chance for Bill to get some consistency, some cohesion, continuity, all the C words there, and chemistry that you want from an O-line group. I mean, everyone thinks you sort of need like 5 stars on the O-line. You don't need that. You need a group that's going to play together, that has some, has communication, as Gabe Eichart's always saying, always talking, has the ability to know when to hand guys off, when to actually play, aggressive, physical offensive line football and do it in a cohesive fashion. That's what Indiana had. Miami had a little bit more star power on their O line, but they still had a couple of guys that were. The center that they had was the Brockenmeyer kid. He bounced around at 3 or 4 different places before he ended up at Miami. So, I think if you can get that O line group together, and they can have a productive spring where we're not hearing, this guy's missed 2 weeks, this guy's missed 2 weeks. This guy's not, this guy's hurt, that guy's hurt, he's missing a lot of time. If we can just have an uneventful spring from the offensive line from that standpoint and just have the guys play together, I feel like OU has a line that could be, talent wise, it's the best offensive group we've probably had in a while. So maybe since 2022, when we had we had Wanya Morris and Guyton and the guy that went to the Jags. I keep forgetting his name. The guy from the DC area, the first round pick.
We know who you're talking about.
Yeah, we know what I'm talking about. So that line was pretty talented. And then Brand, you had the Rame. You had Rame at center. So it was a pretty talented group. So if you could get back to that, I think that's the goal. So I think adding an additional piece, again, it gives you've got the Nitta kid from Western Kentucky at center, and you've now got some pieces around, with Afalava, Akinkimi, the Hinton guy, Peyton Joseph, who you picked up in the portal as well. You've got some pieces, and you started to have some pieces in a second team unit that I think you can start building some O-line depth. But we'll see how it plays out. I mean, again, we're gonna this will be these sort of some of these later acquisitions that OU made in the portal, Chris, Prince Ijoma, the earlier acquisition of Ozawalu, and now Hinton. This will give us an idea, I think, Chris, a better idea of how is the scouting department really doing in terms of scouting lower level players and finding gems at the lower levels.
All right.
I mean, Amarian Harris had so many starts in the SEC. He was kind of an obvious upgrade and add. But I think where the real test about sort of the Nagy, what Nagy does, what he was doing at the Senior Bowl prior to was finding some of these gems at lower levels who could develop into NFL players. Now we need him to find some gems for us at the lower levels that can develop into SEC guys.
All right. Anybody else that you want to talk about as far as portal additions?
No, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if another name or two sort of pops up kind of out of nowhere. So just keep an eye out for that.
Linebacker especially. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. New 2028 verbal running back.
Yeah, so OU got a verbal commitment last Thursday night at like 11:30 Eastern. Mekhi Rogers went on Sterling Sharp and Chad Ochocinco's podcast from the West Coast. They do it from the West Coast, so it was California time, and he went on that and verbally committed to Oklahoma. He's from the Houston area, plays at the same high school that Cortland Guillory did. They were teammates for 1 year when Rhodes was a freshman. 247 has him as the number one running back in the country and a top 40 ranking nationally. So he's right on the edge of a 5-star ranking. Rivals and ESPN both have him in like a top 100, top 5 kind of running back kind of mode. But 247 likes him a little bit more. So DeMarco offered this kid before he took a snap of high school varsity football. He came to an OU summer camp before he started his senior year. His freshman year of high school. He had just graduated middle school, I guess. And DeMarco offered him immediately. And then the next 2 seasons, his freshman and sophomore seasons, he's been extremely productive at the highest level of football. I mean, his high school plays serious teams in the Houston area with serious talent. And
what's his measurables again?
He's about 5'10", 190. He'll probably be, 5'10", maybe a little taller, 200 pounds by the time he enrolls. For OU. Remember, he's a 2028 kid, so he's got 2 more seasons.
Hmm.
He's been to OU summer camp the last 2 years. He's flashed at that. He's been an elite performer at that summer camp. Guillory was probably a big factor. This is a DeMarco Murray win. So if you're a DeMarco Murray hater, just put me on mute for a minute. This is a big win for DeMarco. Rhodes chose OU primarily to be coached by DeMarco Murray. Murray did a great job identifying him 2 years ago and offering him and keeping that relationship going. He had offers from everybody. He chose OU over Texas and Texas A&M is what he said on his social media presence. But he's really, really talented. Josh McCuistion from Sooner Scoop compared him to the Buffalo Bills running back James Cook.
Mm.
I think that's a pretty good comp. So he's a big time addition, and it's interesting because Nagy on the podcast indicated that the podcast he did a couple of weeks ago that's made the rounds on Sooner social media circles. Nagy kind of let it slip that OU had a 2028 verbal commitment, and everyone's like, "No, we don't." So I don't think it was Rhodes. So I think OU may, as good as 2027 is going, as good as the 2026 class is looking in Norman right now, 2028 may be where we start seeing some action. So OU may have a couple of silent commits, and that doesn't really mean it means something, but it doesn't mean everything until they go public with it. But it just means you're kind of leading with some kids. But there's definitely some 2028 kids that are super high on OU and looking to perhaps join that group. So we'll see how this all shakes out. But the last running back OU that DeMarco got this early in the process was Jonathan Hatton. Hopefully we don't have the twists and turns in that recruiting with Rhodes. But, Scott, DeMarco knows how to recruit. We may have had some criticism on some other OU assistants that are no longer with the program about their recruiting, but that's not DeMarco. He knows how to recruit high school. So,
Yeah.
but this sets up so you got Jonathan Hatton for 2026 and DeZephan Walker on campus, both getting great reports. Then you've got the 2 running backs for 2027, Keldred Ben and Jackson Stokes. Ben is completely underrated, getting huge offers from everybody. I imagine by the time the next recruiting rankings really come out, he'll be a top 150, top 200 kid. And if you've not watched Keldred Ben's film, go watch it. It's pretty awesome looking. He's like a slightly smaller, faster, more explosive Samaje Perine is kind of how I describe him. So, and now you've got Micah Rhodes, who's going to be, maybe a top 50 player in the nation. Running back recruiting seems to be going on a good level there, Chris.
No, I hear you. Keep going. Keep going.
So, but that's the verbal commitment there. OU did have a junior day on Saturday. It was a small junior day. From that standpoint, they only had two confirmed visitors. Gus Corsair, the offensive center from Kansas, that OU really wants to add to the class. He was hanging out with Luke Wilson and Cooper Hackett at the basketball game. The only O-line guy missing was Caden Penny. But it's just funny when you see, Gus Corsair 6'3", 285, 290, right? He's not a small guy. And then you see him next to Luke Wilson, and Luke Wilson's 6'6", 300 pounds, and you're like, okay, that's a big guy. And then you see him next to Cooper Hackett, and Cooper Hackett's, he might be 6'8" at this point, Chris. He may be 6'8", 290. He just looks huge. I mean, he's just a massive kid. So OU's pushing heavily to add Gus Corsair to the O-line class. And then they had Gabriel Osborne on campus. OU rolled out the red carpet for him as well. Everybody from the staff took a big group photo with him and his family. OU's trying to maintain their lead there because teams like Ohio State and Georgia are pushing hard. And Gabriel Osborne is the in-state DB from Mustang. He's 6'3", 185 pounds, ridiculous athletic skill and potential. He could be a receiver, a safety, a corner. I think OU's pushing corner right now, but he could. Can you outgrow corner, Chris? Is that possible?
No.
No, I don't think so. Right? But he could be. I mean, he could easily be 6'3", 200 pounds, and then you move him. Decide that you want to play him at safety. Yeah, Jimmy Satterfield, you're with me. I mean, there's been photos of Hackett playing basketball all over the place. He's playing basketball, and then the Sooner coaches have been to Fort Gibson 3 times. You see him next to Jason Witten, and he just looks huge. And we know Jason Witten is a big ass dude. So yeah, Hackett looks like I mean, you watch him on the basketball court. He's a really good athlete, and he's done. There's like no bad weight on his frame right now. And if he's 6'8", 280, 285, something like that, he could easily. I mean, Chris, he could be like 320 and look like he's like 285.
I got you. There is one guy I do want to talk about. Got to give a shout out to the Howell kid, man, from my area, my neck of the woods. I'm from the Bell town,
That's
from
that's
out of Bell, and this kid is from Broken Bow, and he's doing his thing. And everything hear about the kid is a really good kid. Last time I was down there, so tell us about that as well. It's not too often that you're going to get a kid from Southeast Oklahoma, right?
it's not an area OU recruits heavily. Most of their talent they generally find in the greater Tulsa area to just sort of expand Tulsa, and the greater OKC area to expand those sort of metro areas, sort of like 30 miles in each direction. But the interesting thing is, he was offered by Emmett Jones at wide receiver. He plays quarterback for them now. And for the guys, just to repeat, this is Graydon Howell from Broken Bow. He's 5'11", 180 pounds. I don't have an electronic time I would trust on him, Chris, but when you watch his huddle footage, he is not slow in any way, shape, or in any way, shape of discussing. You watch his huddle film, and he's fast. Is he 4.4 fast? He could be. Yeah, he could be. But you
No,
also,
I laugh at I laugh because what Chris Mason is saying is true. I mean, I'm sure the kid is electric. I got to go and watch the film, but y'all got to remember, I'm from an area where we still run the triple option. We run the wheel. Like he may pass a little bit, maybe a little bit better, but it's not like they're not airing it out down there. They're running the ball. You playing quarterback, you're the cheerleader, the coach, the quarterback, the wide receiver. You're playing just about every damn position, and you're running the option the majority of the time. But that is high school football down in that area.
yeah. So he's a really good high school point guard. I don't know enough about high school basketball recruiting to tell you where he is, but he's a very productive high school point guard for the basketball team. He plays baseball to the point that I think, OU would say, hey, if you want to go play some baseball for Skip Johnson, that would be fine too. He runs track. He has the best 400-meter time for his classification in the state. And again, when you watch him scrambling and just basically, Chris, he's the best athlete, so he's playing quarterback, right? It's one of those classic. Well, why is he playing quarterback? Well, he's the best athlete in the football team, so you might as well just give him the ball on every play, right? And just see what he can make happen. And there are plays when everything breaks down, Chris, and he just says, kind of like the Kyler Murray kind of play where Kyler would just say, screw it, I'm just going to run 60 yards for a touchdown. That's what he sort of does. OU is pitching a slot wide receiver role for him, where I think maybe after a year of adapting to playing wide receiver exclusively. I mean, this is sort of there's sort of a couple of stories that always sort of go through recruiting and college development, right? And one of the things that some programs will tell you is you need to offer the high school quarterback, best athlete on the team guy who plays multiple sports, right? In high school, he's playing everything because when you get him into your college program and he focuses purely on football and you get him at the position he should be at, like this kid should be playing slot wide receiver, he'll just blow up, right? That his recruiting rankings might be this, and it's because he plays high school quarterback, and that's not where he projects to play in the college game. But you get him into a college football program, you get him dedicated at one spot, playing one sport. All of a sudden, he looks fantastic, and everybody's like, "Where did this kid come from? Broken Bow? Where the hell is that?" That's sort of where this is what happens. So it's nice to see that the OU scouting department picked up on that, and OU made an offer. We'll see where it goes. He does have some programs, I think, that probably are telling him he could try and play quarterback. He's got a pretty good arm. OU's obviously like, we want you to be a slot receiver. That's where we think you could be a star. So we'll see how that progresses. I do think, Chris, the major reason why we're seeing some of these offers at wide receiver, and OU's been making more offers at wide receiver lately, is the OU verbal commitment from Alabama, a wide receiver, Trayvon Hall. He just got the Bama offer. He was just at Bama's junior day. He's been to Florida's junior day. He's got an offer from LSU. He's got an offer from Auburn. He's got an offer from Alabama and Florida. So I don't know that OU's keeping that kid. And if he keeps going to junior days, I kind of think Brent needs to have a little bit of a conversation with him and be like, I'm not sure you can be going to junior days from everybody else and be committed to us, because that's not fair. So I think OU's making sure they've got some, I think, the Howell offer is completely acceptable. If he called OU tomorrow, they'd accept his verbal commitment. But I'm not sure they're keeping Trayvon Hall as a verbal commitment, for too much longer. Once the spring comes around,
Yep.
if he continues to go to junior days for other schools, I think that's going to be a kind of a conversation where OU says,
I got you. What's going on with this kid here that we had this coming on the screen for a second? What's going
all
on?
right, so Lucas Kelly Jaquan Snell is a big time safety from Texas, Texas high school. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, top 100 type kid. OU's been battling to stay in this recruiting battle. A&M's probably the leader. Texas or Texas Tech is probably somewhere in there. So OU's been fighting to stay in this recruiting battle. Coach Hall and Venables have both, made efforts to go visit him when they can. I haven't got any clear indication that that these efforts are leading to OU getting really back in this fight. We'll see what happens. OU's making more safety offers as well. The other in-state offer they made was a safety, Caleb Dillard from Jenks, who is the nephew of Philip Dillard, who was a 2000 era high school linebacker who went to Nebraska from Jenks. Dillard's got a big frame. He's 6'2", 180 pounds. He's got good junior year film. He could easily be 6'2", 200 pounds. So I think OU is just doing their due diligence, making sure that they're offering the kids. Okay. So Lucas Kelly, I have not heard that about Jaquan Snell, but if OU's gotten him to come to the their junior day event, the Future Freaks event on March 7th, if Snell's coming to that event, which is going to be loaded with OU verbal commitments and guys they really want, that's very interesting. So Lucas, that's a great tidbit of information there. I appreciate you giving that to me, because no one's really he's not been talking about OU that much, and no one's really been asking him about OU. It's only been really A&M sites kind of interviewing him, and they always think everyone's going to A&M. So, Truoki, are you referring to Anafa Alave? Is that who you're referring to? That's the 5-star safety in Cali, in the San Diego area. He's probably going to go to Oregon or USC. Although Cal, now that Tosh Lapui has left Oregon, is making a big push for some California area players based upon the guys that he was kind of that he was really recruiting when he was at Oregon. So he's trying to leverage some of that. So I think that's who you're referring to. Okay, so Snell, I missed this. I haven't been tracking Snell, Lucas, because he's just been off the board. But if he's coming to the OU, if he's coming to an OU Junior Day, all bets are off because Brandon Hall and Brent, they love that kid as a prospect. So that would be interesting. So Chris, the reason why I think OU's offering safeties and looking at more safeties is I think OU lost one more safety than they really wanted in the portal. Exits out of the portal. Like we lost Marcus Wimberly and Jaden Hardy, and we only signed one safety coming in. If you call Nico Jandro a cheetah, which I strongly think that's where he's leaning. That's where OU's leaning to playing him. So Chris, there's an in-state safety called Samaj Stanford. He's from the Tulsa area. It looks like that he may be pricing himself out of the out of OU's interest level in him.
Interesting.
He's 5'11", 180 pounds. He's a great safety. He's playing great football in Oklahoma, but I'm not sure that he has. I'm not sure he has naggy, measurable traits that he wants at safety. So, and he's talking about extending this thing out until the end of summer, taking 5 official visits and doing that, which, no problem. The kid needs to do what he needs to do to satisfy his recruiting. But I kind of think the number his people have and the number OU has, or there's kind of a gap there.
Got to play for pay. Chris Mason, I know that we kind of zoomed through those topics real quick,
Yeah.
but obviously there's 3 that we want that we definitely need to just comment on briefly to keep the show tight and nice. But Ankh is asking, he's saying, what are you hearing about freshmen on campus right now?
So the running backs look fantastic. There's not a whole lot of separation between DeZeph and Walker and Jonathan Hatton in terms of how good they look in their workouts. And I know how fast Jonathan Hatton is from his track time. So if DeZeph and Walker is keeping up with Hatton in terms of just the physical, workouts kind of stuff, that speaks highly to what OU got in DeZeph and Walker, because Hatton is a physical freak. Caleb Curry has been referenced by multiple sites as having tested just off the charts, that he probably could help at linebacker if he can add some weight. Jake Krill obviously is testing kind of off the charts, as we all kind of anticipated. So he's doing exactly what everybody thought upon arrival on campus. It's a good looking group. The Matthew Nelson also tested off the charts, which is not a surprise, right? I mean, we're talking about a 6'5", 225-pound, 110-meter hurdler. 200 meter, a hurdler at that size. So I mean, he's a freak of an athlete. So the general sense I'm getting is that the
Receivers, where's the receivers?
well, Jasir Rogers just arrived a couple of days ago
Got you.
because of that whole high school. He had to figure out how to graduate early from his high school because his high school didn't usually do it. I haven't heard anything on Jaden Petit, but it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, you're not getting no one's really going by every name. Just a couple of guys have flashed, and the names that were rising in early were the running backs, Caleb Curry, and the two defensive ends. So not hearing anything about the defensive tackles doesn't mean anything. That doesn't really mean anything either. Heard that Tyler Ruxer's looking pretty impressive at tight end. I'm not really surprised about that. He's a 6'4.5", 225-pound athlete who runs like a 10.7, 100 meters. He played cornerback in high school, for crying out loud. the thing that seems to be happening, the biggest general comment, Chris, is that it's a really fantastic group of athletes. That the traits, athletic focus that Nagy kind of imprinted on this recruiting class in the middle of the year, around May or June, if you remember, we talked about on these podcasts and on my Patreon and on my recruiting podcast to pitch those things. That Nagy kind of moved, changed who OU was looking at, dropped some folks, added some folks, and was trying to focus on some kids that were just more trait focused. And everything that we're hearing is that that's paying off. That the raw materials Nagy's delivered in winter workouts is the kids are flashing all of that. That it's like, okay, we added some serious athletes, and now it's Nagy's sort of saying, I'm giving you, okay, I've got you guys the raw materials. Now go develop them. And so the kids that we expect to sort of blow it up athletically, like Matt Nelson, Tyler Ruxer, Caleb Curry. When you look at Caleb Curry's high school film, he's just flying all over the place, and he just looks like he could be, the next sort of elite linebacker at the will position for the Sooners. So those are some of the freshmen, without exhaustively going over everybody. Those are just some of the guys that have flashed from various reports that are out there.
All right, two last topics. Obviously, you have the Heineke situation that's looming, and then you also have Valai leaving. So uh, let's talk Valai last because I think we can briefly get through the whole Heineke thing. I think that obviously, I think I can speak for both of us when I say it's a sham. It's crazy. It's idiotic. It's
It's a sham mockery. It's a sham mockery.
yeah, it's regressive. It's not progressive. When you look at the case and all the rest of that stuff, I mean, it's a stronger case than what you have, even with the whole JUCO thing. I think that was crazy as well. You have to have
Oh,
some type.
The JUCO thing's ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's
let me finish. You have to have some type of finality on
no,
these situations. I think the
yeah.
JUCO thing is starting to get blown out of proportion. I think that G League, all the rest, all this stuff. Again, the NCAA has. Um,
They've opened Pandora's box, and I just don't know how to
it's
close it.
not even a Pandora's box. It's just the fact that their inability to make consistent decisions is what is the most frustrating thing about this whole process. Because you can open up the floodgates and all the rest of that stuff, but as long as you're consistent, I think for me, from a lawyer standpoint, that's where I say, yeah, no, I'm fine with it because at least I have an expectation of what's going to happen. But as far as what's been going on with the NCAA for the past decade, there's just no consistency, decisions from decision. You allow Justin Fields to go and play football somewhere else because he uses, a plausible excuse, but a kid is sitting there telling you, hey, I'm trying to transfer back home because my mom, my dad, my grandpa, or whatever has literally been diagnosed with a terminal disease and they only have a few months, and so now I can't play or be close to my family. So I mean, it's just things that just don't really add up. So the lack of consistency in the rulings and all the rest of that stuff that they have in the initial phase, I think that's what is the most disappointing because it really shouldn't take that long, right? Not only to decide, but also to be able to try to fact find and figure out what's actually going on. But if a kid is playing a different sport and only played 3 games, I just kind of feel like there should be some type of eligibility. But you're setting precedents on kind of the wrong issues, especially when people are coming there with actually genuine issues or whatever that need to be resolved. But again, I think that this is just another slap in the face for everybody involved, and especially the NCAA. I don't know them. I don't know their job. Maybe their job is just really that tough, but it just seems to me that there's just no consistency when
Well,
it.
there's no transparency, right? Like
Uh-huh.
you don't get something where an NCAA spokesman would say, yes, we've received Corey Heineke. We've received Owen Heineke's. I'll figure out the Owen Corey thing eventually. We've received Owen Heineke's appeal, and he'll have an answer back in 10 days, 10 business days. That's all we're looking for, right? We're just looking for some information and I mean, it just seems like they arbitrarily come down with decisions, and then the time frame doesn't make any sense. So, but here's where we are. So I think they knew that the initial request was going to get denied, and that they would be able to articulate their case better on an appeal basis. So they're waiting on the appeal, and Chris, I think the strongest appeal basis for this is, can you all we're asking the NCAA to do, I think from a Heineke perspective, is call his his 1 year of lacrosse a redshirt season, right, at Ohio State, and then give him a medical red shirt for 2022 when he sat out the entire year.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's all we're. That's all. These are two things we're asking for. Just call his friend his 2020 21, I think it was, at Ohio State. Call that a redshirt year. He played 3 games and 15 minutes worth of lacrosse. That, by any definition, is a redshirt season for any sport. Can we just call that a redshirt year? And then 2022, we've got all the documentation. He missed the entire season due to a knee injury. Can we just call that a redshirt year? And that's why he gets his 6 year of playing time. I mean, the frickin' Joey Aguilar is asking for his 8th year of college football playing.
It's and most likely we'll get that and get a decision before Heineke would.
Well, he's going to stay. He's not. He has nothing. He has no leg to stand on. So he's just going to some Tennessee court.
Yeah.
The guy is probably some volunteer booster, and asking, and asking for relief. It's ridiculous. But this is where OU is. I think he looked so good at the Senior Bowl that if he doesn't get the waiver back from the NCAA, he's just going to go pro.
Most likely. Moving on, Valai leaving. I think that we say, Valai, I hope that you go and do everything that you want to do up there. I hope. I think my uncle said he just had a baby and all the rest of that stuff. Can't sing your praises more than anybody. I think I want to personally say that I was on the Valai bandwagon when we first got him. We had Texas fans, we had other SEC stops that he made tell us, "Oh, you're going to regret having him. You're going to do this," and I think even from the CJ Colin days all the way till now with these freshman All Americans that we've had, you've seen a natural progression of that DB room just take on a different type of style play, all the rest of that. And it wasn't that hard, seeming that, Roy Manning was a linebackers coach coaching, our DBs or whatnot. Regardless, though, not to take a shot at anybody, definitely would say that I would sing his praises, man, because I think he did a phenomenal job, uh, basically revitalizing, retooling, um, just figuring out what type of DBs we needed, right? And there was a different style of we know that his preferred type, in my opinion, is the 6'1", 6'2", the taller DBs, the longer, lankier DBs that can run but like to tackle. But just phenomenal job, the development, all the rest of that stuff. Can't sing the praises enough. If you want to go off of that, Chris Mason, you can. But what I would say, I think where the conversation really needs to be on the Valai thing is that, hey, we'll send you off. Your final send off should be magical, but who is the next guy?
Well, I mean, there's two ways. I agree with you about Valai, and let's also keep it in mind. I think Valai would have transformed that room a little earlier if Gentry Williams hadn't been lost for 2 seasons with shoulder injuries. If
Yeah.
Gentry's healthy in 2023 and starts 11 games, we're talking about our cornerback renaissance much earlier. But I think Valai's a good coach. We're going to miss him. I do think we can hire good cornerback coaches. OU's certainly the indications from the Board of Regents. OU's willing to spend money on good assistants, keep them, and compensate them well. So if I had to guess a name right now, I would guess probably Brent will go with a veteran cornerback coach, and I think OU would look to steal TJ Rushing from Arkansas. He was at Auburn before that. The kid's an Oklahoma kid. He was at Pauls Valley. I remember when he went to Stanford, I think, out of high school. I remember him, he's a state champion sprinter, and everyone was like asking why OU didn't pick him up when he went to Stanford and had a good career. So I think TJ Rushing would make a lot of sense if you're going to look for a veteran cornerback coach to continue what Valai's done. If you're going to go outside and you're looking for somebody who gives you a little recruiting juice in a particular area, I think Dom Franks might make some sense. He's in the Tulsa area. A lot of connections to Brent. He played under Brent. Good cornerback. So I think that could make some sense. The third name that's very interesting is Ray Brown, the cornerback coach out with the Niners. That's been mentioned. He's from Oklahoma City. He's coached at different positions, and if you could grab an NFL cornerback coach to replace it, Lavalle's going to the NFL. If we could steal someone from the NFL, might have some elements to it. There's a lot of good names out there. The Clemson cornerback coach, their longtime cornerback coach, whose name escapes me right now, but he's probably not someone OU can steal from Clemson. I think Clemson would put up a serious fight in terms of money, and this guy's got like 3 or 4 titles already. So I
Well,
don't.
no, I saw something about Paul Gonzalez out there. I know just USC just picked him up because of obviously Patterson, but you think that's an avenue that they could go?
I've not heard that name. I've not heard that name. I mean, Chip Viney's come up. Gabe Lynn has come up. So there's a number of guys out there. OU does have a guy, Xavier Brewster, who's a GA. Sorry, a defensive assistant. Was a GA. Has been with Brent since I think like 2020. He was with him at Clemson. He played the cheetah position. So that if OU wants to wants to promote internally, and everyone's like, well, don't do that. I'm like, well, guys, this is just because the Luttrell thing blew up in our faces doesn't mean that path doesn't work, right? I mean, Brent promoted Miguel Chavis basically from an assistant GA position at Clemson and brought him with him to go to OU, and now that thing after a couple of years is playing out brilliantly. To the point that OU bumped his salary up to $1 million. So I think there's a couple of ways you go. I bet Jim Nagy's also advising Brent, look, we've got 4 or 5 resumes for you to look at that we think are interesting, just for you to review, just to make sure you're doing some due diligence and you've got some rigor around your process, right? If you want to go with Brewster, that's fine, but make sure you interview 3 other guys as well to get a perspective on what's out there from a hiring standpoint. So I don't know which way Brent's going to go. The last couple of hires have not been folks with OU connections, and they haven't been necessarily Brent people. Knight Dreiling wasn't a Brent guy, nor an OU guy. Jason Witten, same thing, although he has connections to OU. I mean, he has connections to OU coaches, but he's certainly not an OU guy or a Clemson guy. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Brent's now got his defense pretty heavily established, so someone who understands the Brent defense is maybe not as important as it would have been 3 years ago, because now you've got enough teachers of it and folks that understand it that could help somebody who doesn't understand it come on board. So I think the recruiting thing is interesting, Chris. Do you go with somebody who has California connections, because OU's recruiting California heavily, involved with some California DBs? Do you go with somebody that has some gives you a little in-state punch as well, like Gabe Lynn? He's at UCLA, and now if he came back to OU, he's from Jenks. So, I think we all remember Gabe Lynn when he was playing DB for the Sooners. So there's some interesting names out there that could take you in some different directions, but I think on the two sides, the easiest thing is just promote Xavier Brewster because Xavier's been on the road recruiting with Brent because, as you said, Valai's been at home. He's on like paternity leave basically. His wife just had a kid. I can't believe that was probably a pretty interesting conversation, letting her know, hey, you just had a kid 10 days ago and we're moving to Buffalo. So that's probably was a fairly interesting conversation. from that perspective because they've been in Norman for a while. This is as much roots as this is as much roots as Valai's laid down in his career. So you could go with a guy that gives you more juice recruiting wise, or you could go with someone who just has a wealth of experience like TJ Rushing, who's also a good recruiter, but has been at so many stops and developed so many college cornerbacks. So, or it could be a name we're not even thinking about.
And most of the time, it's that.
If somebody comes out of nowhere, you're like, oh, well, that hire makes fantastic sense. And remember, Jim Nagy has connections all through the NFL. There could be some NFL guys that are looking to get, want to get back in the college game, or want to try the college pace a little differently. Looking for, the one thing Brent can offer that the NFL can't offer is stability, right? If you start churning out good DBs, good cornerbacks in Norman, you're going to end up making $1 million, and you're gonna basically got a job for 6 7 years.
Yeah.
Whereas the NFL, as we saw with the GM getting fired, like last week after he just had a press conference at the Senior Bowl. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL. That could be a 1 year gig. Jim Leonard and Valai could be out of Buffalo in a year if the defense is bad and they blow that thing completely up again. So I think it just depends. Do you go with a veteran cornerback coach that you may only have for 3 years, but you don't worry because that person can hit the ground running? Or do you try and develop a Chavis type guy who's going to be a long-term anchor piece of the defense?
All right. All right, folks. Look, we've been on here 46 minutes. We try to keep this show short as possible. We're here for a good time, not a long time. We gave you recruiting all through the. We talked 27. We talked 28. We talked Valai. We talked Owen Heineke. We talked about a lot of this stuff. So when anything else pops up, we definitely will be back. But until then, catch us every Monday night with recruiting pods. Every Wednesday night, Chris Mason drops a solo pod, just giving you the latest on the high school scene, what's going on, all the rest of that stuff. So make this your Monday stop here at 8 p.m. Central Time. Every Monday, we'll be here talking about OU news and also talking about what's going on in the world of recruiting. So with that being said, we're out of here.